Hey everybody, welcome, and thank you for listening to this episode of Marriage Therapy Radio. My name is Zach Brittle, and when I say thank you, I mean it, especially this week. I want to say thank you to Matthew Fray and his partner Jen, who stepped in at the last minute to rescue me from not having a guest to interview. I've been wanting to talk to Matthew anyway. I really think he's getting it right. He wrote a book you might remember called This Is How Your Marriage Ends. He's got another book that he's thinking about right now that I'm excited to learn more about and support. But for this week, he just jumped on last minute to talk to me about his relationship. Jen was a good support too. I'm really grateful that they made some time to talk to me. You know, listen, none of us are very good at the internet or at audiovisual stuff. So the sound in this episode might not be the best. My internet was slow. Their microphone was weird. But I think there's a lot of good content, particularly around the idea of blind spots. It's something I've heard Matthew talk about before, but I got a little bit more of an insight here. And it'll be interesting for you to listen to them talk about it and even to ponder blind spots in your own relationship. So thank you for that. Thank you for all of you who responded to last week's individual episode, especially my buddy Dan. I'm always encouraged by the notes that you send me, so thank you for that. And for those of you who became new Patreon members, welcome. We've got some good content before you behind the scenes. And I even got a couple people who were excited about my blog, Stuff I Write, which is very cool. Let's see. While I'm thanking people, I'll thank Paired, which is the sponsor of this week's episode. If you have not started using Paired as a way to connect with your partner, please consider doing that. It's a great way to support Marriage Therapy Radio. You go to paired.com/MTR. And I think that's it for now. I've got a lot of interviews lined up, but this one also is very fun. Thanks again to Matt and Jen for stepping in the last minute. This is a very cool conversation. Stick around. You're rescuing me because I was stuck. I had an interview scheduled and they were like, I have a family emergency. I was like, Matt, I'll see what Matt's up to. So anyway, Jen, it's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too, Zach.
I think I own that t-shirt. What does it say?
My shirt?
Yeah.
It says bourbon and books.
Yeah, right on. Is that and you're sitting in front of a wall of what?
Predominantly bourbon.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of rye and like other American whiskeys in here, but we're largely bourbon people. This was a gift from Jen, this shirt. I'm fond of it.
Yeah. I think I have that shirt. And bourbon is part of your story, right? It's like how you said it's how you met. What is that story? Tell it to us.
Okay. Well, I don't know, Jen, if you want to.
No, go ahead.
You elbow me anytime I'm like speaking over you, and I apologize. So if we're going to be like the most like all the way transparent about how we met, I was applying for a job, in which Jen would have been my boss had I gotten it many years ago when we were both still married to other human beings, and we worked together for 9 years, and it was in the 9th year when I actually got to the final year I was working there is when I got to know Jen.
Time out. Can we time out real quick?
Yeah, always.
Okay. We didn't work together. We worked at the same company and had the same functions in 2 different departments. So we didn't really see each other a lot, just passing in the hallway.
Was it a bourbon company or what was the deal?
No, we're a company that sells automotive performance parts.
Okay.
And anyway, but I wanted to just be clear that like I knew of Jen.
Gotcha.
But what happened was my childhood best friend got me into bourbon. He like poisoned me with this hobby, this disgustingly sick, expensive, not super smart, but delightful hobby. Yeah. And I found out through the grapevine at work that Jen was a bourbon person. And so that is how we started hanging out socially.
Yeah.
And that was roughly 6-ish years ago.
Yeah. I don't know if this is exactly the angle that I have, but so I don't know if you know this or if it matters. Everybody on the podcast knows I'm sober like 5 years now. So bourbon was my jam. I was totally into it. Although I wasn't classy about it. I was trashy about my bourbon fascination. But talk to me a little bit about like how you have or maintain a hobby that's around bourbon that hasn't ruined your life, or maybe it has ruined your life. I'm not.
Never know.
Yeah. Or yet.
That's funny. I have never felt. In fact, I don't drink alone. Like ever.
Yeah.
I only will have like sips when Jen's around, and I also would say that I drink less alcohol than like in days where I would drink beer or wine. where I would consume a lot. This is relatively like, these are like small pours that we're sipping like pretentious people. And it's just a radically different experience. I don't know. And again, I don't want to speak for Jen, but I've been very blessed where I simply am wired to not have that be like sort of part of the experience.
Yeah, no,
I've never felt the compulsion. And I feel awful for everybody that hasn't. Zach, honestly, I'd have made a different choice about this had I known that was in your history. I'm really sorry.
Oh gosh, no. I do not. My relationship with alcohol, I don't impose that on anyone else at all, ever. Like, it is not about you. It is, and I'm really fortunate because I'm a little bit of a unicorn when it comes to the way I got sober, which is I just decided. I mean, that's not really true. But when I decided, I literally chose my day. I was halfway through a 6-pack when midnight rolled around, and I was like, I'm done. And I poured it out, and I was done. But no, it was ruining my life for sure. And I would love to sit there with you and hear you regale me with stories. I'd love to smell it. In fact, I think I can smell it better now. Like, it's weird because you probably know that it has notes, right? Different bourbons have different notes and they have different qualities. And for the first time, I can actually smell it versus like just pour it down my gullet, So anyway, tell me a little bit about the story of how you guys came together through bourbon. That would be fun.
I don't think there's like a really cool way to put it. I always jokingly say, but I think it's a little bit true. When two like single people spend a lot of time drinking whiskey together, like, it's not weird for one thing to lead to another. Is sort of my really stupid sort of like way of talking about it. Yeah. And the part like liking Jen's company was easy. Yeah. The identifying Jen as somebody that I would prefer to spend the rest of my life with took a lot of time for me. You know my backstory. With the divorce. I mean, I've built my modern day work on my regrets around my divorce and my fears around, all of the little things that happen in committed relationships. My work's based on the idea that we hurt one another in our blind spots. Yeah. And how can you be sure that you're not going to sabotage like a new thing? Yeah. This is was the narrative running through my head for a while. Jen was just really cool about it because I think she understood me. I don't want to speak for her, but Jen knew my work and knew that I had been adversely affected by the end of my marriage. Yeah. So I think I received some grace on account of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. He was, I don't want to say it's not timid, just slow, He was, but warm. It wasn't like he had these walls up and he wasn't cold. We were just taking it slow and we're not in a hurry for anything. Mm-hmm. So it was fine, it's just enjoy more bourbon together.
Do you, Jen, also come from a marriage that has ended?
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm curious about this sometimes. And I think, the answer to this question is valuable to people who are thinking about the end of their marriage. But like, do you each, I know Matt, you do, but like, do you have a story about when you knew? Like, when did you know the first one was over? When did you know? Or did you know? Did you know when you got told, or did you know at some point before that?
For me, and it sounds awful, and I'll say it, he was late coming home from work and he hadn't called. And I thought, well, if he doesn't come home, this is my way out. And that's when I thought, oh no, I have to end it. It was a very slow, it was, it mirrored a lot of Matt's relationship, where it was a slow, decline and a slow erosion.
So Jen, did you just tell me that that the beginning of the end for you was this new thought that you had about like, if X, then I can be done? And between that point and when you were done, was that a week, a month, a year?
Oh, it took a little bit. I'm very bad at remembering time. It can either be a couple days or it could be a month. And to me, it's the same. Yeah. I want to say it was about six or 8 months of frustrating conversations and, going back and forth. And when I read Matt's book, I had to keep myself from getting mad at him because it was so much like what I went through.
Oh, man.
The conversations and the experiences. And I remember telling him, I was like, I'm mad at you, but I'm not mad at you.
meaning Matt was the same, like the character in Matt's book that Matt was the person you were married to.
Yes. The similarities were insane.
Okay. So how did you give yourself permission to go for round 2?
Well, I think he's great.
Yeah.
It was, how could I not? How about that?
Well, I mean, I can imagine lots of reasons why you could not. I mean, if you're looking at this story and going, this is exactly my story, I don't want to sign up for this again. But something about, and I have some theories too, because I've talked to Matt a bunch of times. This is a guy who's capable of learning from the part that he played. That's probably part of it, I would imagine.
Yeah, he's done the work, and because he's done the work and he's aware of it and he continues to do the work, he shows up, and he shows up in a way that I can trust. And I believe in love. So,
yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even, I didn't hesitate.
Yeah. But Matt, you're sitting there nodding your head, going, I can think of reasons why she wouldn't sign up for round 2. Like, what do you got going?
Well, I'm just saying I talk to people like Jen, like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I'm like the dime store version of you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great. And, but I'm exposed to lots of stories, and I understand. I mean, one of the ideas that I'm always trying to champion is the notion that intelligence and character do not necessarily correlate with good relationship partner.
Yeah.
So somebody can be very smart and very high character and very well intentioned, and the sum of their actions can still hurt the people that they profess to love.
Yeah.
If they're not sort of vigilant about concepts around consideration and things like that. And so you can be scared of like good people. And I would like to, I do regard me as a pretty solid person.
Yeah.
My intentions are definitely good, and I'm reasonably high character. I'd like to think people, I think that, and I think people would say so. But that doesn't mean I'm not a huge threat to harm you.
Yeah.
Because I'm not careful, or because I don't handle with care that which matters to you.
Yeah.
On a case by case basis, I can still do that, and I have with Jen around certain preferences. Just little blind spot things where I don't experience it the same way that Jen does. But
yeah,
I'd like to think I'm pretty receptive to the feedback in a manner where I was very defensive and invalidating in my marriage. And
yeah.
I just don't do that now.
Can you talk more about this blind spot theory? And Jen, I'd love for you to weigh in as well, but because I think it's a novel angle that not a lot of people think about, but I bet it's very easy for them to go, oh yeah, like I definitely. So how did you form that, and how do you think about it now? I'm less interested in how you think about it professionally than I am in how the two of you think about it personally.
I guess this could be a little naive. I guess I just sort of believe in the decency of the average person. I believe that on average, I understand there's outliers and anomalies always, but that on average, 2 adults choosing to get married in the year 2025 or whenever in the last 20 years, they know the score. They understand that it's approximately a 50-50 proposition, that it's hard. They've met tons of people who fight, who are unhappy. They've seen divorces happen. They're like, this is a scary idea, but I'm still going to like throw my chips in with this person and have a couple of kids and try to make it work. And then like clockwork, half the time it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of a rational explanation for that idea other than it happens by accident, air quotes.
Mm-hmm.
It happens in people's blind spots.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's intentionally sabotaging the lives of their children and their spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Again, by and large, I know that some people do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make room for the people that are married to somebody like that or have crossed paths with somebody like that. But I think most people are sort of inherently good and trying hard. Yet their marriages don't work out, even though they really did love each other. And they're both pretty solid people. I don't know. I chalk that up to you didn't know better. So how can we make it so that you do? And then you sort of vigilantly protect the other person from from those behaviors, whatever they may be. And it's going to be different for every individual couple. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and I don't want to like speak for Jen here. I don't know how Jen thinks about it, but I don't know that we've ever had this exact conversation. So I'd love to hear it.
Well, I agree that, they're blind spots, right? And I think the proof in intent and if the person is trustworthy is what happens when you bring it up. What happens when you talk about it, when you say, hey, this happened. And what's great about Matt is he'll listen and we can have a conversation. He doesn't get defensive and he doesn't say, no, I didn't do that. And that's the work. And I have to hold myself accountable too. If he brings something to me, I have to bring that same open-mindedness and care. And I think we do a good job at that.
I haven't had a ton of relationships in my life. Jen's pretty fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Well, what do you know about your blind spots? Like, where do they show up for the two of you?
Mine's really sort of like classic ADHD. I'm sure you encounter men that, people, often men, that are maybe not super reliable around communicating plans logistically or communicating thoughts and feelings they may be having. I don't know, that sort of do things that appear to be really selfish, but they just sort of forgot that the other person might be impacted by something they do or don't do. Those are my blind spots. Yeah. Sort of classic ADHD stuff. I'd love to, not literally, but I wish I could tell you what I perceive. Jen's a very considerate human being. So I'd be interested what Jen perceives as her blind spot.
Jen, I want you to think about it for a second, but can I ask you a question about this ADHD thing? Because I know for a fact that people listening, a lot of their ears just perked up. They were like, wait, what? The ADHD? Hold on. How do you do that? Like, how do you have a happier, successful, or manageable relationship when ADHD and the symptoms primarily, not even the diagnosis, but the symptoms are wreaking havoc? Like, Jen, do you have thoughts about that? Or do you, Matt, have you formed that for yourself? Like, how do you mitigate that? Or how do you protect against the symptoms of that diagnosis?
Yeah, I have thoughts about it. And my biggest thought is that I know this about him. You're right. I know who he is and I know how it shows up and I've chosen him. So I have extra patience around those things, but I also know how to raise a flag when I need to. A lot of it is around planning, like planning for a trip. Getting logistics together. I like to have things planned, not aggressively, but I like to know at least a week ahead of time if we're going out of town, what the deal is, when we're leaving. When do I need to arrange for like the cat sitter? When do I need to call off work? I have a food allergy. I can't eat gluten, so I need to know where we're going so I can be ready with where we can eat at a moment's notice or like what snacks I need to bring. So I have more of a planning need where he's not, he doesn't plan ahead in the same way. And so that might be the biggest part where we are different and where a blind spot might show up. But I have a lot of grace for it because, again, I know this about him.
Yeah.
And I still chose him.
Yeah. Hey, gang, hope you're enjoying this conversation with Matthew Fray and his partner, Jen. In Matt's book, This Is How You Marriage Ends, his big idea is that relationships rarely collapse over one huge event. More often, it's the small moments of disconnection, neglect, or silence that add up until one day it feels like it's too late. And this is exactly why I love Paired. Paired is an app that's built on the belief that real, lasting love is a daily practice. Every day, Paired gives you a simple question, quiz, or game to play with your partner. It only takes 5 minutes, but it creates space for the kinds of conversations and moments that prevent the slow drift apart. The best part is that you don't see your partner's answer until you've answered yourself, which makes it a safe space for honesty, surprise, and genuine connection. So whether you're just starting out on your own or you've been together for decades, you can build a habit of connection that keeps your relationship strong. So don't just download the app. Head to paired.com/MTR. That's PAIRED.com/MTR for a free 7-day trial and 25% off when you subscribe. Again, Paired is a great way for you to practice the art of love and staying connected daily with your partner in a way that helps keep you connected and protects you from the possibility that this is how your marriage ends. I remember that you have a gluten allergy, not that you do, but you have a story, Matt, about donuts or something, right? Like that you kind of, it's one of your go-tos, and I stole it. I used it for a while, but refresh me.
Nice. Well, no, so I tell my clients this all the time. So what I want to encourage people to do is be careful, for lack of a better term, mindfully considerate of the needs of another person. So, right. And I think it's really hard when something doesn't seem important to you.
Yeah.
Right. If something doesn't seem important, like your brain doesn't clock it as important, you don't behave as if it's a big deal. So I tell the story of Jen's gluten allergy, and I try to get specific. And I want, for anybody listening that's trying to like parse through all this, that maybe has an ADHD partner, Jen and I don't currently live together. Yeah. And I want to raise my hand and acknowledge that my ADHD will become more of an issue when Jen and I share an address one day.
Yeah.
There'll be more instances mathematically of my ADHD coming into conflict with some of Jen's preferences.
Yeah.
And that's honestly when my consideration is going to really be put to the test.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm really confident about it because I just know that I'll do the work. But it's easier for us than for the couple that's been married and living together for 20 years.
Yep.
And I think both of us want to acknowledge that.
Yep.
For anybody who's listening, we're not trying to like paint a picture differently than what it is. But what I like to tell my clients is how if Jen comes over and I've been eating a sandwich, for example, and then I'm often holding up like my bottle of water while I'm talking to them. And I say, listen, if I eat a sandwich and then with my sandwichy hand that I haven't washed yet, touch this. And then I hand it to Jen like, oh, you got to try this really special drink I'm having. That is a threat to get Jen sick. Let's say she rubs the corner of her mouth. Let's say she picks up a carrot and eats it. That is enough to like sort of transfer like, the gluten that she experienced toxically and get her sick. So I had to learn to apply the concept of danger to a benign substance like bread. Something my entire life I never thought as harmful other than carbs. I've had to learn to think of it as poisonous, not for me and almost everybody that I know, but Jen very specifically needs to be, air quotes, protected from bread, from gluten, from pasta, from flour tortillas, from all sorts of things. So what I ask my clients to do is really think through that story and think, can't we do that around emotions in our relationships? Can't we look out for somebody who experiences scenarios differently than we do? And I absolutely think so. And frankly, I think it's necessary for trust and intimacy to exist in marriage.
I love that. I remember you telling me that story, and like, oh yeah, it's really hard to protect yourself from somebody that, or from something that you don't think is dangerous. And sometimes that thing is you. Like, when I was texting you last night, I was literally like with my kid, and I had just gotten that cancellation, and I was about to go to a movie. We're about to go to see Fantastic Four. I don't know if you've seen it yet, or if that's comic book movies are your jam, but like, there's a moment in the movie where he's like, I'm just being me, basically, is what he's arguing. Reed Richards is to Sue Storm. And she goes, yes, but sometimes you being you hurts me. And I was like, oh, like, it's true. And it doesn't even mean that you're being hurtful or that you're being malicious. It just means that you being you, sometimes it hurts me. And that maybe is what you're describing as the blind spot situation. And I think one thing that I know about you and your ADHD is that you have some humility about it. You don't have like a bunch of like, sorry, I'm ADHD. That's just the way it is. It's more like, yeah, this is part of the gig. And when I talk to people too about humility, I want to differentiate between humility and humiliation. Like, having some humility about your ADHD is different than being humiliated by this diagnosis that you have. And honestly, it could be alcoholism, it could be cancer, it could be, arthritis, it doesn't matter. But like, having some humility about the fact that you're not a whole, complete, perfectly functional robot person is important, I think, when you're trying to chip the scales away from 50-50 anyway.
Yeah. Zach, I just wanted to add, I loved you recounting that exchange. I remember it because I've seen the film twice. between Reed and Sue. And I think in the average marriage, the average relationship, it's really easy for the super smart, he's a genius, and really good-hearted, well-intentioned guy to get defensive in that moment.
Yeah.
And then boom, fights happen, right? And it happens all the time. And I think most women listening that are in relationships with men will say, yes, I've had plenty of experiences where I tried to communicate some pain I was feeling or some fear I was having or some stress I was experiencing. And he made it out like I was attacking him and then got defensive about it. And so it's like I tried to share, and instead of sharing, he sort of hijacked it, made it about his discomfort and abandoned me to feel the bad thing alone. And that is what I am always, I really want people to be identifying that pattern in their relationship. And so if there are men like me prone to defensiveness listening to this conversation, please think about how you can respond non-defensively to what is happening to somebody else.
Yeah.
Despite your best intentions, you're still allowed to explain yourself, but let's start with, it's not okay for you to experience bad things because of something I've done.
Yeah. He actually does a good job of that a second time in the movie, or a different point when he's talking to Ben Grimm. He's talking to the Thing, and he's like, I'm a genius. And he's like, oh yeah, can you cook? He says, I think that's more of an art than a science. He goes, did you pass your driver test? And he goes, that was instructor area, or that was poor signage, I think he says. But he has the literature of being defensive, but then he turns and he just smiles and laughs, and they kind of acknowledge the imperfection of humanity together, even from these like super people. So I'm totally on board. I had a guy on the podcast a few years ago. I don't know. It sounds like you may be of a like mind, but his name is Ryan Airy, and he has a YouTube channel called Screen Crush. And he's one of these guys who does all the, this is everything you missed from the movie last night. So, I'll just plug Screen Crush and Ryan Airy, because I like nerding out about superhero stuff. It's kind of fun. Is that your jam, Jen? Do you share the superhero thing, or is that over there?
I share it now. I was brought into it. One of the things that we did was we sat down and we went through the entire MCU and watched movies.
Okay.
And Matt taught me up to speed.
Yeah. So
I appreciate it. I don't nerd out over it as much, but I look forward to each movie.
Yeah. Do you tell me about your blind spots? What do you know? What do you know about what you're bringing to the table and how that shows up for the two of you? This is the question that I think that you said, Matt, you haven't quite asked yet.
No, I mean, we've never had this specific conversation. I'll be very interested in what Jen's answer.
Well, I'm glad to be the catalyst.
Well, no, I want to be clear that I don't want to set her up. Like, I don't mean this in let's see what you say now way. Like, I swear to you, it's not obvious to me what the bad relational thing Jen does is. I can't identify it. So I think there's a chance that on a case-by-case basis, she might perceive me and or somebody else to be a little on the sensitive side about something.
Yeah.
She might, if that's probably, if I had to power rank things, the number one, because it's really easy to invalidate when you think somebody's being, making a bigger deal out of something than they should. But anyway, I want to be quiet and let Jen answer this.
I think that's about it, that I can sometimes come across cold or, just a little less emotionally available. And then other than that, just as Matt would say, taking risks when I shouldn't.
That's a bug, not a feature? Or what do you mean?
It depends on which one of us you ask.
Yeah, well, I'm asking you.
I think it's a feature, right?
Yeah.
And that might be the blind spot where I will do a thing that makes him uncomfortable, but I don't think about it making him uncomfortable,
Yeah. What do you know about?
She's a motorcycle girl, Zach. Motorcycle girl, and it took me asking nicely to get her to wear a helmet.
It did.
She spent 20 plus years not wearing a helmet on a motorcycle.
Hold on. I want to correct. I would like to set the record straight on that one. I wore a helmet for many, many years. My dad is also a motorcyclist, and he quit wearing a helmet. My parents quit wearing helmets. And so I stopped wearing mine to try to show them the anxiety that you feel when someone that you love doesn't wear a helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't work. They were like, yeah, isn't it great? And I said, yeah, it actually is really great. So I developed a bad habit of on small around town trips of not wearing a helmet.
Right on.
And Matt asked me to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And I wear a helmet every time now.
Yeah. What can you tell me about this thing that you're describing as sometimes I come across as cold? Like Matt has the advantage, or I don't know if it's advantage is the right word, but he's able to go, I have this diagnosis, and that the symptoms of that diagnosis are pain in the butt sometimes. Some of us, like me and you, perhaps, like we come across as aloof or cold, and it's not a diagnosis. It's just a thing. Like, what do you know about your thing?
I know that it was how I was raised, and that I try to be in my friendships and my working relationships, and in my relationships, I try to do better than how I was raised all the time. But I can tell sometimes I'll almost say the thing that would be the do better, but I don't say it. And I don't know why. There's no reason. I'm not like afraid, I'm not afraid of saying it. I just sometimes don't. And so, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. Like there's the word that's become kind of in the zeitgeist now that I'm clinging to because it makes me feel good is stoic. I'm just a stoic. I'm just kind of
yeah.
I'm not a jerk. I'm not aloof. I'm just philosophically, thoughtful.
I like that. I'll use that too.
What do you, all right. So it sounds like you have some staying power. It sounds like maybe you're tipped the scale towards I don't know what the better side of 50-50 is, but you're on it's not quite a coin toss side of the equation. And what do you attribute that to? If you said, hey, the reason the two of us are making it work, the reason you can look into the future and say, we're going to live in the same house, that sounds like a thing that's on your agenda. Like, where does your confidence come from? What would you say is the code or the secret?
I have thoughts about it, but Jen may have a different answer. Thinking about relationship partners, I'm an advocate for radical personal responsibility. I can control what I can control.
I love that.
I can control my actions.
Yep.
And I also get to decide who I choose to partner with. So I have limited bandwidth for somebody who chose somebody and then is like, oh, I just don't like 80% of them anymore after 15 years. I have a pretty low tolerance for it. But I am, again, everybody's story is different.
Yeah.
And it's gonna again depend on how many times you felt betrayed, how many times you felt injured, relationally speaking. The reason I'm really confident with Jen, one, she absolutely passes my personal sort of litmus test for the kind of person I want to be around.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. So that's the easy part. The hard part for me is, do I trust me? Do I trust me to not behave the way that I did, that I calculate to be the largest reason my marriage ended? And I absolutely do. And the fundamental distinction is twofold. One, I'm aware of how harmful my sort of lack of consideration can be to trust in a relationship and to another person, A. And B, I've developed a vocabulary to have conversations about it. I didn't know how to talk about things like this 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the language for it. And that takes work. For a person that doesn't feel, I don't know, relationally literate, you got to try to be.
Yeah.
And I tried to be because I didn't want a repeat of the end of my marriage.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say about this.
Yeah.
Jen, on the other hand, I feel has to gauge her tolerance level for my bullshit. And so I'd be interested in why she's oh, I think I can deal. Because what if she's wrong? What if year 7 of living together, she's okay, I've absolutely had enough of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, no, I don't tolerate you. I've never met someone who gets me, the way that he does. We, our brains are very similar. I'm also a writer, and I call it writer brain. We're able to understand each other, and we have the same moral compass, and we're very similar. We're very different in many ways, but the ways that we're very similar are important.
Mm-hmm.
I think that right there is reason enough to trust that this will work.
Yeah. There's a phrase in my line of work. It's called relational reckoning. And basically it's looking at the relationship and appreciating that the things that are working or the things that are going for you are big enough to offset the things that aren't working or the things that aren't working for you. And that's really what it's about. Like at that point you have, it's if it's working way better, it's easy to stay in and easy to kind of continue to do the work. If it's working just a little bit better, the work's a little bit harder. Maybe you have to work that much more, but obviously when it's offset in the other direction, that what's not working is bigger than what isn't. And I think, what I didn't say about Jen, your story of when you knew your relationship was over is there's a part of the Gottman research, which is divorce prediction research, that is, the number one predictor of divorce is thinking about divorce. People who think about divorce get divorced more often than people who don't think about divorce, and people who think about running marathons run more marathons than people who don't. So a lot of times you have to get people into a mindset of thinking about making this work, thinking about making it work versus thinking about how do I get out? Because this is why I asked you, do you remember about how long it took between those first inklings of the thought to the end? And maybe it was 6 months or 6 or 8 months, but that's a reasonable path to be on. If you're thinking about your exit strategy, you'll find it, And if you're thinking about your entrance strategy or how to stay in, then you can find that too. So I appreciate that you guys are doing that, blind spots and all.
I don't think people think about it like this, sort of the average person, because it's so easy, right? Like Jen and I, it's so easy. We're just like friends and it's great and it's fun. But if every single time I did something that Jen experiences disrespectful or inconsiderate, I did the invalidation dance with her and I'm like, hey, because I don't think about it the way you think about it, because I don't feel about it the way you feel about it, that's your problem. Like, I'm fine the way that I am.
Yeah.
I'm not any different than I've always been. And if that's always the same conversation, nothing ever gets better. It progressively gets worse.
Yeah.
A little bit at a time until someone like Jen has to make a hard decision about whether to walk away or not. And I just, again, it's the privilege of being on the other side of divorce, A, and B, having done this relationship work, is I'm highly concerned about not beginning a pattern of paper cutting Jennifer's trust in me.
Yeah.
Like that can't happen. And I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
Where again, I think the average young couple just getting together, that's not something that they're considering.
Yeah. I gotcha. Oh man. Well, I love talking to you. I forgot. It's been a while. And thank you so much for rescuing me today. Jen, it was a pleasure to meet you. And do we know when are you guys moving in together? Is that a thing or is it still just a moving target?
It might be a slight moving target just for logistics reasons, but the number one thing for me, I honestly think that we already would if I didn't have a child.
Yeah.
I have a son who's a senior in high school.
Yeah.
And so we're in the final year of him sort of needing parents at home, things like that.
Yeah.
And I figured once we get him off to school following high school graduation, that clears the path to combine forces somewhere. So
you're saying we should check in with you in about a year and see what's going on, see how you're doing.
Probably more like 18 months, but yeah,
okay.
I do absolutely. I think in a year we'll have a pretty concrete plan at least.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate again that you were available on short notice. Thank you, Matthew Fray and Jen, for joining me. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your love of whiskey and your perspective on blind spots. It was really helpful to hear about that. Again, I think Matthew is getting it right. If you haven't read This Is How Your Marriage Ends, it's a great study on how to get it wrong. And so there's a lot to learn about what to do differently. And if you're looking for somebody to work with, Matt is a great relationship coach. I've referred several of my clients in his direction. They all report having positive experiences. So you can find him at matthewfray.com. That's Fray. And again, just a good dude. Okay, that's it, except for me thanking you for the time and attention you put into making your relationship better today than it was yesterday.